Hi, third grade. This is your Bible lesson for Monday, April 27th. We are going to be doing lesson 25.2, and in your book, it's going to be page 98. So, before we start today's lesson, I want to back up a little bit and talk about Peter's actions after Jesus was arrested. So I'm going to start in the book of Luke, chapter 22, verse 54. So again, Luke 22:54. So they arrested him and led him to the high priest's home. So they're talking about Jesus there. This is right after Jesus was arrested. And Peter followed at a distance. The guards lit a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat around it, and Peter joined them there. A servant girl noticed him in the firelight and began staring at him. Finally, she said, "This man was one of Jesus' followers." But Peter denied it. "Woman," he said, "I don't even know him." After a while, someone else looked at him and said, "You must be one of them." "No, man, I'm not," Peter retorted. About an hour later, someone else insisted, "This must be one of them because he is a Galilean, too." But Peter said, "Man, I don't know what you are talking about." And immediately, while he was still speaking, the rooster crowed. At that moment, the Lord turned and looked at Peter. Suddenly, the Lord's words flashed through Peter's mind. So earlier in the story, you'll remember that Jesus said to Peter these words, and they tell you them again here. "Before the rooster crows tomorrow morning, you will deny 3 times that you even know me." And Peter left the courtyard, weeping bitterly. So why is he weeping bitterly here? So the reason is because he's sad about what he's done. He's sorry about what he's done. And he feels bad. He didn't think that he would deny Jesus, but when it came to it, and he might have been in danger if he had admitted to knowing Jesus, he said he didn't know him. Okay, so now we're going to sort of fast forward to another part of the story. Okay, so now we're going to look at the book of John, chapter 21, and we're going to start with verses 1 through 6. Now, this is after Jesus has been crucified and raised from the dead. And remember, he did appear to the disciples a couple of times. So this isn't the first time that Peter has seen him. So let's look at verses 1 through 6. Later, Jesus appeared again to the disciples beside the Sea of Galilee. This is how it happened. Several of the disciples were there: Simon Peter, Thomas, nicknamed the twin, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples. Simon Peter said, "I'm going fishing." "We'll come too," they all said. So they went out in the boat, but they caught nothing all night. At dawn, Jesus was standing on the beach, but the disciples couldn't see who he was. He called out, "Fellows, have you caught any fish?" "No," they replied. Then he said, "Throw out your net on the right-hand side of the boat, and you'll get some." So they did, and they couldn't haul in the net because there were so many fish in it. So what I want you to notice here is that Peter is back with the disciples. He's sort of taking a leadership role in telling them, "Hey, let's go fishing." He's not still hiding out and pretending he didn't know Jesus. He's socializing again with the other disciples. All right, so now verses 7 to 9 say, "Then the disciple Jesus loved said to Peter, 'It's the Lord.' When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his tunic, for he had stripped for work, jumped into the water, and headed to the shore. The others stayed with the boat and pulled the loaded net to the shore, for they were only about 100 yards from shore. When they got there, they found breakfast waiting for them, fish cooking over a charcoal fire and some bread. So we see Peter doesn't wait for the boat to get to shore. He is acting in boldness. He sees Jesus and he wants to get to him as quickly as possible. And he jumps out of the boat and swims to the shore. Finally, let's read verses 10 to 14. So again, this is John chapter 21, 10 to 14. Bring some of the fish you've just caught, Jesus said. So Simon Peter went aboard and dragged the net to the shore. There were 153 large fish, and yet the net hadn't torn. Now come and have some breakfast, Jesus said. None of the disciples dared to ask him, "Who are you?" They knew it was the Lord. Then Jesus served them the bread and the fish. This was the third time Jesus had appeared to his disciples since he had been raised from the dead. Okay, so what we see here is Peter being obedient to what Jesus has commanded. Jesus tells him to bring the fish, the net in, and Peter obeys what Jesus says. Okay, so now in the next part of the story, we're going to read verses 15 to 17. After breakfast, Jesus asked Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" "Yes, Lord," Peter replied. "You know I love you." "Then feed my lambs," Jesus told him. Jesus repeated the question, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord," Peter said. "You know I love you." "Then take care of my sheep," Jesus said. A third time he asked him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was hurt that Jesus asked the question a third time. He said, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." Jesus said, "Then feed my sheep." So what is the significance here? Why is this important? Remember when Jesus was arrested that Peter denied Jesus, knowing Jesus, 3 times. 3 different people said, "Aren't you a friend of his?" And Peter said, "Nope, don't know him." So a lot of people who are theologians or biblical scholars, people who study the Bible, think that that's why Jesus asked Peter 3 times here, "Do you love me?" Because, Peter's like, "Yeah, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do." So it's kind of a point of reconciliation. Reconciliation, remember we talked about that with the prodigal son, how you kind of making up, kind of getting back to that relationship that like the way it was before. So Peter has had a chance here to sort of get back into his relationship with Jesus. And Jesus has told him to take care of his sheep, feed his sheep. And we know that in this case, Jesus is talking about people that he wants to come to know him. And he wants Peter to help be the shepherd of those people and help them to learn about Jesus. Okay, so now we're going to look at the page, and I'm just going to go over the directions and then you'll finish it on your own. So your directions say, God's forgiveness restored Peter, and Peter acted with boldness. Read Mark 11:25. God's forgiveness reminds people to restore relationships. Remember I said reconciliation, restoration is another word for that. For each question, read the 3 good choices. Circle 1 you would choose to do. So if you are in those situations, you would choose what what you would do in that situation, how you would kind of fix that situation. And then at the bottom, it says complete each sentence. So you're going to read the sentence starter and then finish it. All right. Have a great day. See you next time.